Can you guess what I'm sitting in front of right now? Because other than the fact that the thumbnail probably gave it away, you wouldn't expect these chunky recovery points and this brush bar to be on something like a Bronco Sport. But lo and behold, for 2025, Ford has given us something pretty cool. They've added a Sasquatch package to their smallest Bronco. So for 2025, the entire Bronco Sport lineup is gonna get a bit of a refresh, but the big news really is the Sasquatch package. They've taken the name from the big Broncos hardcore off-road pack and they've grafted it onto the smaller Bronco Sport. So what do you get? Well, for starters, you get this front bash plate. It goes all the way underneath the engine, so you're protected as you kind of crag over boulders or whatever it is you're gonna do. You get these recovery points here and here, 2 front, 2 rear. There's also this standard brush guard, which I think is super duper cool, but you can modify it, you can put a light bar in there. These are accessory ready, so you can put on whatever it is you might need here. You also get these 29-inch Goodyear all-terrain tires wrapped around wheels that kind of look like the big Broncos Sasquatch wheels, but they're just smaller here for the Bronco Sport. And then probably my favorite part of the Bronco Sport Sasquatch is this integrated tie-down point into the fender. I've never seen anything quite like this before. When you need it, you can tie something up to the roof rack up there, but when you don't need it, it sort of just falls away and hides. And I really like it. It's rated at 150 pounds, and it's probably my favorite little detail on the Bronco Sport Sasquatch.
The Sasquatch package also gets improved approach, breakover, and departure angles, and 8.7 inches of ground clearance. That's better than the Toyota RAV4 TRD Off-Road, but not as good as the Subaru Crosstrek Wilderness.
There are some things that haven't changed for 2025, specifically the engine lineup.
You can still have a 1.5-liter turbo or a 2-liter turbo. The 1.5-liter model's power figures are going to change slightly, but the bigger news is that the 2-liter turbo is going to lose 12 horsepower and go from 250 to 238.
You can thank emissions for that.
When it comes to fuel economy, the EPA hasn't rated the 2025 Bronco Sport yet, but we don't think the numbers are going to change very much from 2024.
That said, you can still get the Sasquatch package on either engine option, so you don't have to spring for the top spec model with the 2-liter to get all of the off-road goodies from the Sasquatch package. That all sounds really cool while we're standing around here and just talking about it, but I want to go and drive it.
Through here is kind of a little bit maybe higher speed, kind of like a washout lake bed area, so you can go 20, 25 is kind of what we'd recommend through here, kind of get the vehicle going. So we'll kind of just snake through here. There's some rocks and stuff. We're gonna come up to Jill and we're gonna kind of do an off camber, so she'll guide us through that.
Wow, look at that. That's some pretty solid articulation right there.
Yeah, so right, you're about 20 degrees.
21, 22 degrees. Nice. Nice and easy. It makes it's off-roading made simple. Look at how casually it just moves through. Something that I think most people would find relatively intimidating if you're very new to it.
Despite its new shocks in the back, the rear of the Sasquatch never really found its footing, especially as we picked up speed. The little SUV jostled me around a lot while we were going over some of the rougher stuff.
The idea is Sasquatch, bigger tire, more suspension travel equals off-roading easier. And that's exactly kind of what I'm experiencing right now in this. You throw in the extra technology, that's a bigger screen. I like this cluster with you get like your pitch and you get your roll degree. I think this would kind of help anybody be a better off-roader. And I think that's probably the point. I do get a decent amount of feedback through the wheel. I kind of can sense where they're going. I get sort of the shudder when it goes over some craggy rocks, and I sort of get the slop when it goes through a muddy bit. I actually do get a good sense of what the front tires are doing through the steering, even though it's not, it's obviously not a classic hydraulic rack, but it's still pretty informative for what it is. Well, it was a super easy off-road session, but the Bronco Sport Sasquatch handled it like it was nothing. So thank you very much, man. I appreciate the time.
I appreciate you guys coming out.
No problem. Okay, after that brief drive, we are back inside of a Bronco Sport Sasquatch model, and I wanted to take you through a couple of the things that you get in a Sasquatch on the inside that you might not get on other Bronco Sport models for 2025. The first thing I want to point out is these auxiliary switches. They come with pre-wire, so all you have to do is rig up the wiring for your powered accessory into the engine bay, and you're set. That's it. There's no extra work to do. It's super plug and play. One more thing I want to point out in the interior is the locking rear differential. It's a really helpful addition. It'll make sure that you get out of mud or ruts, or it'll help you get extra traction if you're crossed up and you have one wheel in the air or something like that. And I think that's super neat. Let's talk tech, because for 2025, you get a lot of it in the Bronco Sport. The first thing you're gonna notice is this 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster. It's fully customizable. It's inspired by what's in the Bronco Raptor. And even the regular Bronco doesn't have a fully digital gauge cluster, actually. This is super cool. And it's standard across the range. You don't have to spend a bunch of money to get this. You also get this 13.2-inch infotainment display with Sync 4. If you've been in a Ranger or a Mach-E, you're going to be pretty familiar with this system. There is one thing I don't love that they did for 2025, and that's they moved the physical climate controls that used to be down here into the screen. And I know that's becoming more and more popular and people are getting used to it, but personally, I still enjoy being able to adjust the fan speed or the temperature without taking my eyes off the road because I always know where the knob is. It's not that bad in here because you have this nice shelf for your hand to rest on and you can sort of manipulate the temperature or whatever it is you might want to do, but it's a personal gripe and I like the way it was before. Also, because the screen is bigger, you lose the tiny little shelf that used to be here. The vents used to be on the side and there used to be a small parcel shelf that you could put a wallet in or a phone or coins or whatever. Because the screen has gotten bigger, you don't get that anymore.
Cargo space hasn't changed at all for 2025, which means there's still plenty of room for all your gear in the back and space for 2 adults to sit comfortably in the second row. Towing also gets a nice bump for 2025. The 1.5-liter models can tow up to 2,200 pounds, but the bigger 2-liter model can tow up to 2,700 pounds now. That's more than enough for a couple of Sea-Doos or some kayaks or even a decent-sized fishing boat.
Overall, I have to say, I actually dig the interior of the new Bronco Sport. Even though we're sitting in a pre-production model right now, the leathers feel nice. I like the interior color choice with this brown and this gray. Everything feels pretty well put together, and I like that they added a grab handle for 2025 so your passengers aren't just flopping around all over the place while you're going off-road. There are nice, thoughtful touches in here, and aside from the HVAC controls that I already mentioned, this is a genuine improvement.
Ford hasn't released pricing for the 2025 Bronco Sport yet, but I can tell you that the Sasquatch package is going to cost $3,500 on the mid-grade Outer Banks trim and $3,000 on the top-spec Badlands model.
The Bronco Sport Sasquatch is cool and all, but what about the rest of the lineup? Well, the changes aren't that big. You get some new headlight clusters, a slightly different wheel design, and a new rear fascia, and that's kind of it aside from all the interior changes that you're going to see across both models. But there's one thing missing. There's no hybrid model. Ford recently came out with a Maverick hybrid, and that's based on the same platform as this. And when we asked why, they said, well, customers wanted more capability. They didn't want more fuel economy. So for now, there's no Bronco Sport hybrid. But my gut tells me there might be one in the future, so stay tuned.
Don't forget to hit like and be sure to subscribe to the Edmunds YouTube channel to stay up to date on everything we're doing here. We'll see you in the next one.